All right, today we're talking about, well, the entire planet. And you might be wondering, how on earth do you even start to describe something so huge? It turns out you just need the right words. Once you have those, everything else starts to click into place. So let's dive in.
I mean, it's a massive question, right? Just think about it for a second. You've got everything from the highest mountain peaks to the deepest ocean trenches. You've got packed cities and sprawling empty deserts. How are you supposed to wrap your head around all of that at once?
Well, you start with the right words. That's the secret. Think of it like this. We're going to build a kind of mental toolkit, piece by piece. We'll be using the exact same vocabulary that geographers use, the words that let them take this massive, chaotic world and turn it into something we can actually read, something we can map out and, actually understand.
Okay, so first things first. How do we even look at the world in a way that makes sense? We're going to start with the absolute basics, the tools and ideas that let us get that huge, big picture view.
It really all begins with just getting a different perspective. That's what an aerial photo does. It gives you that amazing bird's eye view, and suddenly you can see all these patterns. Maybe it's an ancient ruin, or the way a river snakes across the land. Things that are totally invisible when you're standing on the ground. It's really the first step to taking all this messy reality and getting it down on a page.
Right, and you obviously can't draw every single tree or every single house on a map. I mean, can you imagine? It'd be a total mess. And that's exactly why we use symbols. You can think of them as a kind of visual shorthand, like a secret code that lets a map pack in a ton of information, but in a way that's super clean and quick to read.
And of course, if the symbols are the secret code, then the key is your decoder ring. It's the little box, the legend, that tells you what all those squiggles and shapes actually mean. Without a key, a map is pretty much just abstract art. But with it, it becomes this incredibly powerful tool.
Okay, now this next one is maybe the most important idea of all, scale. This is the magic trick, the brilliant concept that turns a simple piece of paper into a tool that lets you cross entire continents. It's just a simple ratio, right? But it means you can measure a couple of inches with your thumb and forefinger and know that in the real world, that's hundreds of miles. Scale is what makes the whole thing work. It's the bridge between the map in your hand and the actual ground under your feet.
So where do you see all this stuff in action? Well, you've got the two classics, the globe and the atlas. A globe, that gives you the honest-to-goodness truth. There's no distortion, it shows you the real size and shape of the continents. But let's be real, you can't exactly fold it up and stick it in your backpack. That's where an atlas comes in. It's a book of flat maps, so it lets you zoom way in and get all the juicy details of one specific place. It's always a trade-off, Big picture accuracy versus close-up detail.
All right. So now we've got the tools to read the map. But what are we actually looking at? What are the huge major features that those maps show us? Let's zoom in a bit on the Earth's grand design. And a good place to start is right in the middle, the equator. Now, it's an imaginary line. You can't actually go and stand on it, but its effects, they're very, very real. It's the baseline, the great divider that splits our world into the northern and southern hemispheres. And because it gets the most direct sunlight year-round, it's basically the engine that drives our entire global climate.
So, from that warm center, let's go to the complete opposite, the frozen extremes, the North and South Poles. These are literally the 2 points where our planet's axis, the imaginary rod it spins on, pokes through the surface. They are the geographical anchors of our world. Super desolate, incredibly icy, and absolutely fundamental to how we understand the globe.
And from the flat ice of the poles, let's rise up, way up, to the planet's most dramatic features, mountains. I mean, these aren't just high spots on a map, right? They are geological titans. They are so massive, they literally create their own weather systems. They protect all sorts of unique plants and animals, and they've shaped the course of human history for thousands of years. And speaking of shaping the land, nothing shows the power of time and water quite like a river. A river's journey is like a life story. It starts small, at its source, maybe just a little spring. But as it flows, it gathers strength, carving out a wide valley. And if you give it enough time, we're talking eons here, that relentless flow can slice a deep, steep-sided gorge straight through solid rock. It's incredible. And while we're on the subject of water's power, in the driest places on Earth, a little bit of water isn't just a feature on the landscape, it's everything. An oasis is this tiny dot of life, a vibrant green hub for plants, animals, and people, all thriving in what's basically an ocean of sand. It's a miracle, really.
Okay, so we've talked about the big, solid stuff.
the mountains, the poles, but the Earth is anything but static. It's constantly changing, constantly in motion. So now let's talk about its dynamic moods, the forces that sweep across the surface. I'm talking about weather and climate.
And this is a super important difference to get right. People mix them up all the time. Weather is what's happening right now. Is it sunny? Is it raining? Climate is the big picture. It's the personality of a place over the long haul. It's the answer to what's it usually like here in the summer. So think of it this way. Weather is a single snapshot. Climate is the entire photo album. So who are the people trying to figure all this out? Those are meteorologists, and they do way more than just tell you if you need an umbrella tomorrow. They're deep in the data, analyzing these complex systems to help pilots fly safely, to help farmers know when to plant their crops, and, crucially, to help entire communities get ready for dangerous storms.
Yeah, and we're talking about way more than just a little bit of rain here. These scientists track enormous, powerful systems. Things like a monsoon, which is a seasonal wind that can dump life-giving and sometimes life-threatening rain over half a continent. Or a typhoon, a monster of a storm born over the warm ocean. And what's underneath it all? Temperature. That's the key ingredient, the variable that gets the whole engine going.
All right, for our last section here, let's pull all these threads together. We've talked about maps, mountains, and weather. So where do we fit in? Where does humanity find its place in this big geographical picture?
Well, this is where we fit in. A settlement. It's a simple word for any place where people live. It could be a tiny village with just a few houses, or it could be a massive, sprawling megacity. Either way, it's the most basic mark we humans make on the map. It's the places we call home.
And as those settlements get bigger and bigger, we start to move around a lot more. Think about the commuter, that person on the bus or train every morning. That's modern geography in action. They're part of these invisible rivers of people, flowing back and forth between home and work. And in doing so, they're the ones weaving a whole region together, day in and day out.
But our presence isn't always so harmless. It can have a huge and sometimes really devastating impact. And this is a pretty stark chain of events to think about. It starts with pollution, our activities making the air, water, or soil dirty. That can push an entire species to the edge, making it endangered. And if nothing changes, if we don't act, that leads to the final irreversible step, extinction, gone forever.
So that brings us to our final thought. We've gone through the words, the language we use to describe and understand our world, from the scale on a map, to the journey of a river, to the impact we have on it. But the real question is this. Looking forward, what words will we use to describe our planet's future? Based on the choices we all make today, what is the glossary of tomorrow's world going to look like?